Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get to today's episode, a little message from my friend Katie Horner. Katie, take it away.
The event of the year for Christian business owners is just around the corner. Handprint Legacy Live 2021 is virtual this year, which makes it super easy to attend from anywhere in the world without makeup, long flights, or expensive hotel rooms. Thursday through Saturday, June 24 to 26, we'll spend 3 powerful days mapping out your first or next most important steps for your business. I'm Katie Horner. My husband and I have grown from full-time ministry in Mexico to full-time international business owners by understanding and solving the countless marketing challenges faced by Christian entrepreneurs. We created the Handprint Legacy Live event as a safe haven where small business owners, teachers, authors, and coaches strategize, implement, and grow their business. This event is highly interactive and tickets are limited. Grab yours today before we sell out, because 3 days of Bible-based fun and marketing instruction is going to leave you with your next marketing funnel all mapped out. Register now for the 2021 event at handprintlegacylive.com.
That's right. If you are interested in this amazing event, please, of course, check out our show notes now. There will be more details on that there. And without further ado, Lucas, take it away.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction. Change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you for joining us this week. Super excited about sitting down with this guy. Why? Because I always get excited when we got a runner in the house, and that is exactly the case today. He is hailing all the way from Johnson City, Tennessee. I actually had to Google that because I was like, not even sure, like we might have gotten off track, because I thought if we're that far out in Tennessee, we got to just swing on down to Chapel Hill. Like we just like maybe need to get on the right off ramp or something. I don't know. But I digress. So help me welcome him in today. This is what I'm excited about, and we're going to hopefully dig deep into this because I'm fascinated already by this. And here's what I'm fascinated by. He is a special operations unit. And why I like that so much is because when you shorten down operations, you know what you get? You get OPS. Which, you know, really, if you shorten our name, we're kind of in this operations as well, right? This special ops kind of thing. That's me and my maybe homage to my dad in the Marines, Semper Fi. He is not a Marine, but he is kind of in that wheelhouse in that area of Navy SEALs. So we'll get deep into that. But he's also an ultra runner. Listen to this. This is so fascinating to me. You ready for this? Anybody want to raise their hand wanting to do this? Let me know. You know, message me on the show, OPS Podcast show, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of those places. Reach out to me and let me know that you're willing to do this. He ran in one time. Ready for this? 64 miles straight. That's called an ultra runner. In case you were wondering, that's what those are called. So we gotta find out what possesses a man to run that long and have a fun time doing it. Help me welcome him in. He is Chris. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Neil. How are you doing? Was
that enough of a welcome? I don't know. Did we do you justice in that? I don't know.
That was a little much. I don't like all that praise and all that excitement, but thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, like I said before we started taping, I always want to feel like somebody's coming into my house. So I'm not saying everyone that comes to my house gets that, because right now, if I were to ask my little friend, you know, the little black circle things, you have one of these at your house. I don't want to say the name because she'll wake up, but you know what I'm talking about? When I ask her, I say, welcome me home, and I say her name, it actually plays the presidential march.
Really?
Yeah, because my little show is a nonprofit, so I consider myself the president, and so Perfect. Anyway, it's really lame and very, very egotistical, but you can actually have her welcome you home to a song. So little known fact about those things. But getting into your story, I like I said, I want to thank our friend Deb for turning us onto you. So Deb Shannon, if you guys don't know her, you probably should want to go check her out as well. If you're in that coaching environment, stuck in that moment, she's really going to help you do that. Past episode, you probably want to go check her out there. By the way, on behalf of Deb Shannon right now, I just want to say this to her. Go Heels. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, Chris, back to you. I'm curious about this question. If you can answer, you did mention you'd been on a few shows, so I'm excited about that. But I want to ask you this question because I guarantee the past shows that you've been on, no one's asked you this question. You ready?
All right, bring it.
All right, Chris, what size shoes do you wear?
Ooh, yeah, no one has asked me that. 9.5.
Okay.
9.5, yeah.
9.5. Now, is there a certain brand? I know being a runner, you probably got a few pairs of shoes laying around the closet, maybe in the garage, maybe in the room, but is there a certain style or brand that you like to wear when you're out doing your 64-mile run? Wow.
Yeah. I kind of still am, but I used to be a big Salomon trail shoe wearer. I'm kind of moving into the Ultra, a little bit of a wider toe box running shoe, but those seem to be fitting really well and very comfortable. And I've been wearing those for the last year now and really like them. So between Salomons and Ultras right now.
Ultras. I have not worn those, and I'm not a trail guy. So Salomons I never could get behind. I'm an Asics guy. In fact, I'm wearing my Asics Noosas right now, which is a triathlon shoe. Yeah. I'm a little bugged. My toe box, this is how I know you're a true runner, because you're talking toe box. So the toe box, like right on the edge of it, the seam has a little hole in it, which I'm really irritated by. So I don't know what to do with my shoes. I have such a hard time throwing shoes away. I'm a shoe nut. You'll find that out if you hang out long enough. So you talk about Johnson City, Tennessee. By the way, help me geographically without looking at my map too much, but how far is that from my beloved North Carolina border? How far are you from that?
About a half hour from the border, but about 50 minutes from Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's about 30 minutes from the border and then about 50 from Asheville.
You could have just driven 30 minutes, taken your computer and okay. I'm just kidding. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Tennessee is fine. It's a good state, I think. I'm not sure. Never been out there. I heard it's a good state. Some people go out to see NSYNC. I myself stay in Oregon. So there we are. I'm curious about this. If we were going to go hang out with you for a day out where you are and just spend the day with you, where would you take us and what would we go and do?
Wow, that's a good question. I'd probably take you to tour the campus. I'm going to East Tennessee State University. So I'm back in school now and probably drive around through campus, show you campus. It's kind of right in the valley of these two mountains or of these group of mountains. So the university sits right at the base. So it's just a really pretty, really nice scenic kind of backdrop, nature, kind of the whole thing with the mountains and the university sitting right at the bottom and that. And then maybe some hiking, some trail running, kind of a little bit of both. And then there's a few breweries around here too. So maybe some post-hiking, running, beer and food.
I like the beer and food part. If we could just skip all the ultra running part, maybe. I don't know how we do a day in the life of you and not do that, but that's good stuff. No, I think I was sharing with you. I have done 2 halves, which I'm pretty proud of. I've done probably about a handful of 10Ks and way more 5Ks than I care to probably admit, probably upwards of 100. I like the 5K range. There's not a lot of training. It's mostly pavement. It's 3 miles. I can do it in a weekend and not die too much, but 64 miles, I got to ask that leading into this, like what possessed you on your mind to think I'm going to go, what is that, about 18 hours? I think you said to me 18 hours to do it.
Yeah, I think a little less, just under 18 hours, I think.
Yeah. What possesses somebody to go nonstop for 18 hours to do that? Like, I can't even fathom why you would want to do that. Help me with that.
Yeah, no, it was, it was the next check in the box. Like I had a half marathon, I had a 50K, I had a 50 miler, and then it was like the next thing to check off, and it was the 100K. And, I think since the military, I've just always been kind of wanting to find out what my limits are, what's enough for me, or what's going to maybe not necessarily break me, but what's enough for me and that I'm okay with. And that's enough, that's it. So that was the next thing for me. And, my training was really good, and the training and everything just made it more enjoyable, I think, and maybe not easier, but maybe more enjoyable. So Yeah, now I've got a 100 miler this year. That's on the list. So we'll see how training and racing go throughout this year. So
Help me out. If you're doing these, what's your minute per mile pace, if that makes sense?
yeah, no.
Pace
So
per mile,
so
maybe that's what I'm saying,
yeah,
right?
so what I like about trail running, because I used to be a pretty avid triathlete, and I would know what my 10K times were, my half marathon times were, um, give or take roundabout. But with trail running, I've done, gosh, I did a 50 miler that took me 8 hours, and I did a 50 miler last year that took me 12, almost 13 hours. So there's really no, every terrain and elevation is different, so you can never just be like, well, I know that I can run a 7:30 pace or an 8-minute mile or whatever. Everything is going to be dependent on elevation and the terrain and, how much of each there are. And so I usually average anywhere between 13 and 15-minute miles for the majority of my races.
See, I like that, but you're also climbing over mountains, right?
Right.
Because thanks to COVID, like my mile times dropped. I was in the, if I could do a 5K and, sub 30, sub 26, sub 25, man, I
Right.
was like good for the whole weekend. Like everything looked prettier. Well, minus my wife. She's always pretty. But everything, you know what I mean? Like everything looked prettier. The grass looked greener. Everything looked just
Sure.
amazing if I hit that time. And so what I started to discover is I was so obsessed with the time. And when I didn't get that time, my world was wrecked. And so do you ever feel like that way at all? Like when you don't hit that performance or you don't do that right, that your day just gets destroyed?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think that's maybe a little bit of the competitiveness that we have, I think I've learned throughout this endurance, long distance running that, there's going to be times when, things are going to be going great. Like I might be on a good pace. I might be feeling good. My legs might feel great. And, maybe at mile 30, I'm like, this is miserable. I hate this. This sucks. Like, I wish I wasn't here. All of these different emotions and different things just because the terrain is different or because I was on this really good pace or really good high. And then, I didn't account or I maybe forgot that there was this huge climb that's, the next like 5 miles, or 6 miles or whatever it might be. But on the other side of that though, too, is that if things are going really well, then that kind of high or that good feeling will carry me through that as well, Yeah, I think learning to accept the goods and the bads and the highs and the lows and have fun and do the best that I can possibly do and be happy with it, I think is something I've definitely learned throughout this long distance running for sure. And some patience. So
that's awesome. Do you ever feel like your running is maybe a metaphor for your life in any way? Because I'm wondering about it because, yeah, I mean, you shared some stuff with us that it's great to have that high, right? It's great to have that mountaintop experience that, oh my God, I've arrived, I finished. I mean, let me just tell you, I mean, I would probably tell everyone I know, I'd probably put it on a shirt because I'm just that peacock kind of guy. Sometimes I struggle with that, but I'd probably put it on a shirt, 64, miles straight. What do you got? I mean, I would probably tell every guy I know that they don't even measure up to me because they haven't gone 64 miles straight. You know what I mean? But life, unfortunately, still reigns. I mean, it still is bad. And so what I'm wondering when I hear in that is I'm wondering if running has ever kind of splashed over into personal life. And if so, talk about that if you're willing.
Sure. Yeah, man. So, being in the military and being, with the people that I worked with for so long, fitness and that kind of thing was just really important. And, we had to be in shape for the things that we were doing. And so I think that on top of the competitiveness that, each of us already has, I think that helps kind of in the de-stressing process of life. You know, when you're going through some tough things, I think going out for a run was very therapeutic for me for a long time. And I got out of the military recently, unexpectedly, and just was in some really low lows, some really dark lows. And, you know, it got to a point where I didn't even want to run. I didn't feel like it. I just didn't have the energy to even get out the door to go run these mountains that I can see from, you know, my front door and do any of that. You know, I think, you know, like you said, that being that metaphor for life, I think, you know, you can't stop when things are getting tough in your life. You know, you've got to move on, you've got to press on, you've got to endure it. And that's something that I still struggle with sometimes, just getting out the door to go. I know that I feel better when I'm done. You know, no one's ever said, man, I really wish I never went on that run today. You know, I wish I never went to the gym today, you know, and I always feel better when I get done. It's just that initial, okay, I just get dressed, you know, as soon as you get out there, you know, that you're going to enjoy it. It's nature, it's the trees, it's the, you know, the river, the streams, or the creeks, or the deer, or the birds, and, you know, all these different things that can kind of, you know, take you away from what's going on, and just for a little while to clear your head and to kind of refresh and recharge and regroup, and then come back home and be like, okay, where do I start? Like, let's get to it. Like, you know, let's figure this out. Let's move on. Let's make a list. Let's start crossing things off that list and move on.
You mentioned your military career. Now, I know this, but just for the sake of our audience, you were a corpsman in the Navy, right? And so you served in a lot of special operations units, worked a lot very closely with the Navy SEALs, in that respect. So I'm curious of two things here, if you can maybe answer them. One, scariest moment you remember working with the SEALs and being a part of that. And then the second thing, when do they call the corpsman in? And maybe tell us what a corpsman is. So like 3 questions there, maybe if we can break them down for you. So scariest moment, what a corpsman is, and then why would they call a corpsman in?
Okay. So scariest moment, I was with the SEAL teams, and I was in Afghanistan. We were going out on all of our missions, all of our, you know, operations and things are all at nighttime. So we went out to check out this village that we had heard, or that we had gotten some word that they were hiding a bunch of caches of weapons, and you know, there's a bunch of ISIS or Al Qaeda, you know, fighters and people there in this village that they were hiding out. And so we went out there to go kind of check it out and just kind of, you know, drive through the village and just kind of make our presence known that we were there, kind of thing. And you know, just see what happens and kind of get a feel for, you know, the vibe or the environment that was going on. And so we're going through, and, you know, obviously, you know, people are waking up and running out there, the doors, and looking out of the windows and that kind of thing. And, you know, just, at first, you know, there's a little commotion, just people kind of wandering around and looking and that kind of thing. So we're going through, we're driving around, driving out of the other side of this little village. Well, as we're going through this village, there's a small trail, and we were we call them side by sides. So they're like little kind of dune buggies, if you will. And there's 3 of us in it. So there's a driver, there's a passenger, which is where I was. And then there's a guy in the back that faces backwards. He faces outward. So
is he like the gunner, the tail gunner almost?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he has his weapon in the back. I had mine up in the passenger seat, and then our driver, you know, he has his kind of across his lap.
So
you know,
you are carrying. I mean, it's not like you're just driving around just for the sake of it. You got some armor. Correct. You're ready to go if you're met with resistance in any way.
Correct. Okay. Absolutely. All so I have my medical bag, my medical kit, my weapon. Guy in the back's got his weapon and his gear, and then the driver as well. So we're driving through this village, and then the village kind of narrows and goes into this little trail. And so we're driving through this trail. We're not really sure where it goes. You know, we don't have any lights on or anything. We're in our night vision. So we're driving through, and then we come up, and it comes up into this dirt road, and there's this checkpoint that it comes out to. And we didn't know that it was a checkpoint or that it was manned. So we're driving up, and, you know, there's 3 guards who are Afghani, and they're yelling. They have their weapons drawn on us. they're yelling at us. We don't know what they're saying. We sometimes have an interpreter, or what we call a terp. We didn't have a terp with us. And so they're yelling at us. We're yelling at them. Nobody knows who's saying what, but we're within probably 15 yards of each other. They're got their weapons on us. We have our weapons on them. We're stopped, so now it's like this standoff for this, what seemed like probably 5, 6, 7 minutes. And I'm sure it was only probably a minute and a half, but it was like, at this point, what are we going to do? It's, do we shoot first and then, that way we don't have any casualties, or do we wait, kind of feel it out? And then, if they open up on us, then we open up, and then now there's, multiple. So, we ended up just kind of not yelling and not making it so aggressive, but kind of calming the situation, I guess, by our voices. We slowly kind of got back in our vehicles, slowly kind of made our way around this checkpoint. We still had, our sights on them. They had their sights on us. But we kind of calmed the situation down, I think, just by, lowering our voices a little bit and, just moving really slow, but deliberate, and then getting in and driving away, without any issues whatsoever. Hopefully, they don't, I'm sure they knew we were Americans, but they didn't know who we were. We didn't, again, we didn't have any lights or any kind of anything that gave us away other than, our night vision and in our vehicles. But that was probably one of the, I guess, non-combative scariest moments that I've had. So
something about having a person point a weapon at you, I think could maybe
Right.
change you in some respects.
For sure.
I'm not trying to say
100%.
that flippantly either. I would just imagine that that would be a pretty scary moment, especially with it being dark, as you mentioned. You're there at night. You don't know what's behind you. You don't know what's coming towards you potentially, right? Because you can't necessarily see unless you turn
Right.
your head with night vision, I would imagine, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, we have guys that, we kind of know what our positions are and what we're going to do in certain, instances and that kind of thing. But yes, I'm sure they could, they had no clue. They just heard some vehicles and they heard some people yelling, and, they didn't have the equipment that we had. So, to them, it was just a bunch of people yelling and, in some other language, and, so yeah, I think it for sure, it just raised the level of intensity on both sides.
I think there can be a lesson learned there, right? Is that in life, if we want to yell and scream and yell back and we're really never going to understand the other side that's yelling back at us. But to your point, if we kind of lower our tone, really, really try to talk in maybe a more softer tone, I think a lot of things can potentially be de-escalated. I don't know.
Sure.
You could have just dropped a pearl of wisdom right in our lap there. I feel like, I don't know. But but you mentioned your time being in the Navy. You even said you would still be in it, right?
Yes.
You would go back and do it all over again. How long did you serve our beloved country for?
Yeah, I was in for 18 years. Did 18 years. So I was a corpsman, very same as a medic. Just Navy uses the term corpsman, from way back. Being corpsmen, they combine the two words corpsman to corpsman. As a healer, medic type person. So yeah.
When do they generally call the corpsman in?
Normally it's, normally you don't ever want to hear them, call corpsman or corpsman up. In the Marines, they say corpsman up. And that's the term that's used for someone who's been injured or hurt or killed or, in some way. So, normally when it's someone's been injured. So. And
if you don't mind sharing, maybe what led to your leaving the Navy.
Sure. So I was, I was going through a really tough time. So I had just recently been divorced. My parents had just recently split after 45 years, I think at the time. I had I think he was 2 years old at the time, 2-year-old son. And I've been drinking a lot, just kind of dealing with the stressors of being away from my family, going through this divorce and, my parents and was just drinking a lot and dealing with, things that way. And I got a DUI and went to captain's mass and was separated from the Navy for DUI. So, thankfully nobody got hurt. It wasn't anything serious. I was pulled over for speeding. But thankfully, that was it. Nobody was injured. So that was it. So I think it was like 17 years and a couple months. So just under my 18-year mark, was separated, for the DUI. So honorable discharge, and was separated within a month of my captain's mass. So pretty quick.
Do you ever regret that night?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. I could have walked home, really. It's one of those things that, people, you always hear, people, getting DUIs or getting in trouble or accidents or whatever. And it's usually within walking distance to their house, within a mile or 2 miles or whatever. And it was literally a mile from my house. And, I didn't walk, I didn't call an Uber, and just was like, oh, I live right up the road. I can just drive right up the street. And that was it. And, I pulled over. So yeah.
In that moment, did you ever think that you would lose your ability to be in the Navy any longer?
No, not at all. I never, if you would have asked me then, I would have easily bet $1 million. I don't even have $1 million. That's how confident I would have been that I wouldn't have. And it's not, and it has nothing to do with like the Navy or me being who I am or what I did or anything like that. It was just, I had several friends in the military that had DUIs, and, they were still in, and they, recovered from it, and, they ended up having longer careers and that sort of thing. And I didn't really feel like my situation was any different. And, but yeah, so I, for whatever reason, I was an example. I was, something, I know the Navy is starting to really crack down on the drinking, the stereotype that the Navy has, or that has had for, generations of, drinking. And that's just what you do in the Navy, and that's what happens. And that's, the sailors and drinking, and, but I know the Navy's trying really hard to kind of change that identity. So
well, I think back to Top Gun, which I know is a fake movie, right? But they're naval aviators, for goodness sakes. And I don't think, Tom Cruise and Anthony Edwards, they might have a little too much to drink, breaking out, and you've lost that love and feeling. Just saying. Sorry, right? I had to get the Top Gun reference in there. We're talking Navy. I couldn't help but weave that in there. Yeah. But what I'm wondering about this drinking and getting to the point where you're getting a DUI, to me, it's not like you just woke up one day and was like, you know what, I'm going to go get, smashed, whatever you want to say. There comes that's a progression. That's not like a, one-time thing. Maybe it is for some, but my understanding is it's a progression thing. It's a slow fade, perhaps. But what I'm wondering, Chris, if you can help me with this, is you're a corpsman. You were in pain. Mm-hmm. You were hurting. Mm-hmm. Where was the corpsman for you to help bandage your wounds?
Yeah, that's a good question. I took pride in the fact that people came to me, for things that were bothering them, whether it was a headache, an ailment, an injury, even life at home. I've had guys come to me and been like, man, I'm just having, a shit day. Like, I'm having issues with my wife or, my girlfriend or whatever. And a lot of times, we're kind of, the corpsman / therapist / buddy, / hey, it's 3 a.m. I need an IV, we have PT in the morning kind of thing. And, I took a lot of pride in having guys rely on me that I didn't have, not that I didn't have anybody, I didn't seek them out, or I didn't call them. So I think it was maybe a pride thing, maybe pride thing, I guess. I don't know.
I wonder about that too, because I know, being an ultra runner, you've kind of learned how to fight through the pain. I mean, I would imagine
Right.
you have to. I mean, 64 miles, your body at some point in time is going to say, please, Chris, probably more than just a please. Like, you need to stop now. You need to give up. And you have this amazing quote, which you've kind of hinted around about, but I want to make sure it's succinctly said. And that's this, is if it's endurable, endure it, right? Stop complaining. And so that mantra really comes to mind, I think, in the running aspect. But again, we're trying to parallel that line back to your life, that running really is a metaphor for your life. And I know, I mean, I would just imagine if my wife came home today and said, hey, we're getting a divorce, that would wreck me. After 19 years of marriage, I have a daughter who's 13. If she came home and said that, I would just be devastated, right? There would be some pain in that. And so I love the fact, and it sounds like you're kind of doing this, you're using that bad stuck moment of a DUI to say, you know what, that's where I was, but look, this is where I am, and let me now help others not be stuck. Why do you think that's so important to you, that fire and that desire inside of you to now help others get unstuck from their situation?
Because I know what I had, I know what I lost, I can only imagine what the future held for me if I would have stayed in the military. And, if I can help somebody get through some hard times where maybe they want to, drink, or they want to have a little bit more to drink than they should, or maybe want to, or, I want to be able to help and let people know that, hey, I experienced this firsthand, and it's really not going to help you. It's going to help you for the evening or for the night, but then the next morning you're going to be hungover, or, maybe you did drive home, or maybe you did wreck your car, or maybe you don't remember how you got home, or, maybe you're waking up on the side of the road in your car. So there's all these things that can happen, that I've experienced a lot of them. And if you can get past these, speed bumps, and at the time they may not feel like that, but that's what they are, and if I can help somebody kind of get over that hump. And I think I think it goes back to me wanting to help people as a corpsman. And I think, I feel like I've always just wanted to help people, and which is why I went into the medical field anyway. And and I think it's just carried over now where, my job may be a past chapter, but I can still help people in other ways and still use this stuff that I've experienced to help other people, in their life, or move forward in their life, or maybe help them gain some more momentum in their life. So
you mentioned being in Afghanistan. You mentioned the checkpoint. You sent us actually a really sweet picture, which, by the way, you're kind of in this kneeling kind of position. You got your weapon ready to go. You look like you're just a bad mamma jamma from South Alabama. I want to say that. I love the picture. It just it invokes so much in me, just of pride in you and pride in our country. By the way, I want to mention that. So if you're curious about the picture, go look at the show art. It's probably going to be there. But I'm wondering about this. You mentioned, the Marines say, which I'm familiar with, former Marine kid, born in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Proud to say that. I know some are dogging my hometown, my Bethlehem, but I don't get the joke because I've never really been there. I don't remember it. But I say all that because I'm wondering, you said Marines say corpsman up, and I'm wondering, are there people in your life right now that are using you in that same kind of capacity of, hey, Chris, I'm hurting. We need a corpsman up. We need this corpsman to come up and help heal some wounds. And if so, what are you doing in that respect to really help people and educate them maybe on some past mistakes and some hurts, but helping heal some wounds for our future generations?
The best relationships I've ever had are guys that I served with in the military, and specifically in combat roles. A lot of those guys I keep in touch with. A lot of them are like, those are my go-to guys. Those are my best friends. I was in the initial invasion in Iraq, the second initial invasion in 2003. So every year, a bunch of my Marine buddies that I served with in Iraq, we have a reunion, and it's over the weekend of the Marine Corps birthday. It started out being the anniversary that we went into Iraq in March, but then it ended up getting changed to the Marine Corps birthday. And so we do it every year in November, and we pick a place. Every year it's different, in a new place throughout the United States. I love it because it's like a venting session for everybody, whether it's feelings and things left over from Iraq, feelings and things that they've brought home from Iraq to, their families that, they're trying to get through, or, just reminiscing and kind of getting it off their chest. It's a lot to endure. It's a lot to carry, home, especially, a lot of those guys were, 18, 19 years old. And I happened to be a little older. I was like 26 or 27. But, I can only imagine being 18 years old and thinking that, I'm never, nothing bad is ever going to happen to me. That kind of mentality when you're 18, 19 years old and, you're over there in this situation that, you don't know what can happen. And, coming home, and bringing that burden home. And so I think it's, I think it's therapy for all of us, to be back together again, to, just talk about family and talk about how things are going and, talk about, shit that they're going through, whether it's with the VA or getting, certain benefit things that they're, trying to fight for, or, that they can't work because of a certain thing, that happened when we were in Iraq, or, their wives don't understand certain things that are going on with them, or, maybe they're just being stubborn. Maybe it's a pride thing and they don't want to get help because, they're stuck in this, well, I can't get help because that's a weakness, or that's, this or that, or I'm going to be looked at a certain way. And I think a lot of that is coming to light that it's not as bad as we used to think it is. And getting together with these guys, it's I love it. It's a time where I can be around my people again and talk about that stuff. And it's usually a week long, and everybody stays for however long they can stay. And some guys will come in for a day and leave, and some guys will pass through and stop in, and some guys spend a night and a couple nights or a week or whatever. And, and it's just our time to kind of hang out and vent and talk and, get it all out, whatever it might be. And so I think they're my corpsmen up, during that week or during that time. And I'm theirs, again. And, of course, we all keep in touch throughout the year, and we all know that we're available and there for each other throughout the year. But I think being in person and being able to sit around a campfire, or sit around a bonfire out in the back, or, in the living room and drink some beers and have some food and kind of sit there and talk and get it all out, I think is extremely helpful for everybody, including myself. So.
I think that's great. And I think there's something, again, we were saying this before we started, there's something about being in the military that I, as a civilian, will never, ever understand. Even though my dad was in the Marine Corps and I've met with, several Marines through the years that I know personally, family, friends, whatnot, there's just something about that fraternity, that forever fraternity, that I think the average person doesn't get and won't ever understand, because my dad's met Marines from all over the world, realistically all over the United States, and they immediately have this connection. Like, I have friends that are former Marines that are my age who meet my dad, and immediately, like, they're treated more amazingly than I am as my dad's own son. So I'll say that with 100% declaration declared, because like, again, I just think it's so great that you have those lifelong connections, and what a week to do it, by the way, the Marine Corps birthday, November 10th, during that time period. It's so cool that you do that. And I want to thank, if you can carry this message to your tribe, I'll say, that I'm thankful for sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here. I'm thankful for every person that put their life on the line for me. I'm thankful for you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I mean that because you guys do things that I think people would never even want to do. Mm. And I know that sounded kind of funny, but I mean it. Like, I think there are times that we take our military for granted. We remember them on the 4th of July. We might remember them on the Marine Corps birthday. We might remember them on Veterans Day and things like that. But the day-to-day, every moment, or every other day thinking, man, I wonder how so-and-so is holding up. I have friends that are still on active duty in the Marine Corps, in harm's way, that I do think about from time to time. And I do ask for a prayer of protection for them, because they are walking into areas that I think the average person would be like, I'm good. I'm going to go stand over here.
Right.
I'm good,
Yeah.
and you guys put your life on the line, especially you as a corpsman.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So I'm curious about this as we kind of try to wrap up. But by the way, Chris, I want to thank you for your honesty. Everything you've shared is just so good. And I really love that you're able to be so honest with us, and that you trust me enough to be that honest. So thank you for that. I'm curious about this. What is something that you maybe have learned the greater lesson in? So is the greater lesson in the Navy, or has the greater lesson come from your running and your endurance training and things of that nature?
Oh man, I think a little bit of both. I think I take from the military the expectation or what's expected of me to do a certain job or a particular thing, and that I'm being dependent on. And then outside of that, from my running, I think it's the enduring thing. It's endure whatever it is, and I like that. You brought up the whole metaphor with the ultra running and that kind of thing, that, mountains are easily a metaphor for life. And it's, whether you're walking in them or running them or jogging them or whatever it might be, there's going to be those highs that feel like you're just slogging away at something that just doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. But that peak is up there, it's beyond those trees, beyond that foliage. If you can endure it and you can get there, then, it's going to be worth it for sure. And that's something that I learned after the military, where I didn't feel like my life had the meaning that it did. And I contemplated suicide for a long time, several different times. Finally was just like, you know what, like, I need to get out. I need to go run. And I remember this, like it was yesterday. I remember sitting around and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it. I'm done. It's, I'm just, it's too hard. Like things, I just feel like I just was going uphill forever. I remember getting out of the house and was just like, I'm just going to go for a run for a little bit and just kind of see what happens and clear my head and that kind of thing. And I remember going for this run, and I ended up having a really, really good run. I remember sitting out, I stopped like kind of halfway, just kind of looking around and kind of taking it all in, and, just kind of had a good cry for a little bit. And I came back and was like, there's something there still. Like I got to keep after it. I got to keep fighting and endure it. And I did. And man, I'm so glad I didn't, do anything stupid. And so, now I'm going into my senior year at the university, and I'm doing some, speaking to athletes about, mental, the mental mind game and that kind of thing. And I'm watching my son grow. He's 9 now, and, watching him, play sports and, that kind of thing, and spending time with him. So I think I hope that answers your question. I think I kind of rambled in a couple of different tangents, but I think that answered it.
Don't ever worry about that.
Yeah.
I think you did great. You did fantastic. No, I love, because again, I feel like you're really stuck in these two worlds, right? You're stuck in the civilian world. Welcome to it. Kind of sucks, by the way.
Yeah.
Just saying, I would imagine. And then, you're kind of stuck still in this Navy life that you still have all these kind of routines and patterns and rhythm and routine. And I know I said routine like 6 times, but as far as I remember, military is about routine. So I said it repetitively so we can have that routine. But
yeah, and excitement. I mean, I was traveling all over the world. I was traveling all over the United States for different trainings. And, we were diving in Hawaii and in Florida and skydiving in Arizona and all over the place and training for different things all over the United States. And it was exciting. I got to travel and see the United States and the world and all these great things. And now, again, I'm at home and I go to school, full time, and I work, and, I go run when I can, and, as much as I can almost every day. And, but I'm not out skydiving anymore, or out diving, or out doing all these, things that I lived for. I loved traveling. I loved training for these different things, and testing myself, in these, in my medical expertise, in my diving expertise, and skydiving expertise, and all these different things. And now it's like, I went from 100 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour. And, that's been the biggest, I think, adjustment, biggest change is trying to slow down and kind of like, okay, I don't need to be going 100 miles an hour anymore. There is some excitement still without having all that. I just got to find it and figure it out. And, and again, the speaking thing is one of those things that I get excitement from, and I love helping guys figure that out. So,
well, please tell me you're not like folding t-shirts at the Gap, because that seems like, no disrespect to those folks that fold t-shirts at the Gap, but brother, please tell me you're not folding t-shirts at the Gap. All right, good. All right, good. All right, fair enough. So just a couple more questions as we wrap up. One question that I have to ask you, because you bring up your son and you talk about having that relationship that he's 9 years old now. And I'm wondering about this. Yeah. What lesson do you hope your son learns from you?
Oh, that, man, not to give up, not to give in. Life's going to kick in the groin a whole lot, a whole lot. And it's going to get better to just keep moving forward. Don't ever look back. One foot in front of the other. It'll be slow and painful at times, but it'll be worth it just to keep moving, keep pressing on, keep pushing, have that kind of determined fighter mindset.
How about if it's endurable, endure it and don't complain, right? Did that get you a little choked up thinking about that question, by the way? I'm calling you out a little bit. I'm sorry. So if I am, we can punch me if we ever meet face to face, but I wonder, in all seriousness, Chris, I'm not trying to make fun of your tears or even your emotion, because to me, emotions are awesome. It shows us, at least it shows me, that we're real, that something hurt us, that touched us, right? Yeah. And so I know there's a lot there with your son. There's probably some missed moments. There's probably some missed birthdays. There's probably some, unmet expectations that you feel like maybe you failed him as a dad in some respects. I mean, we could go all day probably just on that alone. But that's why I asked that question, because he's 9 now. One day he's going to, Lord willing, be 20. And I would love for him to look back and listen to this. Hey, when you were 9 years old, you were on my mind. When I was falling out of that plane at 20,000 feet, 40,000, however high up you were, 60,000 feet. I don't know how high you go, but when I was falling out of that plane, you were on my mind. When I'm in Afghanistan and I'm having a gun pointed at me and screamed at in Afghani or whatever they speak, you were on my mind. I do these things for you. You're on my mind. And I mean, if I'm putting words in your mouth, obviously stop me, but I just, maybe he needed to know that.
Right. Absolutely. No, you're spot on all of it, for sure.
Well, I just know that for the longest time, my dad didn't even know what day my birthday was. He knew it was in March. By the way, it's 11 days before his. So just saying. So there's that. Last question. When you hear this quote, what comes to mind? You had your quote. Here's my quote. So we'll go quote for quote, right? So what comes to mind when you hear this? To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. When you hear that, what comes to your mind?
Yeah. Oh, Steve Prefontaine. Yeah. Gosh, I think that's a great quote. I think.
Yeah, I didn't say it, and you were right. That is Steve Prefontaine. Just to be clear, I'm not that brilliant.
Yeah. I think that if you have something to share, or you have something or that you can provide other people, or a knowledge, or an ability, anything that you can share with other people, and you don't, or even for yourself, and you don't, then you're not living up to your full potential, so to speak. Not that you're any less, or that you're not as good a person. But I think if you have something to share, or you have something that's meaningful, that you think is meaningful, to share it and to show it to people and to help people and help yourself, and live by that yourself, whether it's that code or, your quote or whatever. If you can live it and you can do it and you can share it with other people and they can be, and it can help them, then I think that's the gift that I think everybody has that. I think it's figuring it out is the hard thing. Is the difficult thing.
100%. What would you say your gift was that you feel like you need to share and give out?
Maybe my gift is my experiences that I'm sharing here with you and the listeners. I contemplated my life because of things that one decision I made, and it impacted so many other things. It was like this kind of explosion that just kind of, keeps spreading and, is bigger and bigger and bigger kind of thing. It's like this, atom bomb type thing. And it influenced all these other things and people and experiences, and that life gets super tough. And I said it before, life just gets tough. Life is hard. If you can keep pushing on and if my story helps or resonates with somebody, that's a gift that I have to give, the guys that I went to Iraq with, that I see every year, just being there around them and, being in a year, kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know. I'm maybe still trying to figure that out.
I think you're right on with it. Maybe I can help. So in my mind, your life, if it's not here, right? If Chris says, you know what, I'm done, I'm checking out, I'm punching my ticket, whatever you want to say, your choice, because it sounds like you were kind of on the verge of that, like teeter-tottering on that, right?
Yeah.
In some respects.
Sure, yeah.
If you're not there, who is the guy that's going to go be that corpsman up? Now, I know there's plenty of others, right? They could grab a guy from whoever, but it's not you. You had that camaraderie. Right. You had that respect of the Marines, which to have a respect of a Marine, especially as a Navy guy, is pretty unheard of. Just saying from my experience, right?
Yeah.
You kind of are just like warring houses sometimes, right? Like Duke, Carolina, right? They just don't want to play in the same sandbox. But I say all that because I think you would have robbed the world of your presence, and you definitely would have robbed your son of having his dad. And to me, there is no greater gift in this life than to be a father. And so I think that, to me, is your gift, your legacy, if you really know that. And I think you do know that. You just, you're probably still processing through that, which is okay, because I think we all are. We're all a work in progress. Nobody's perfect. But but I just wanted to share that with you because I think that's powerful to say, listen, I was on the verge, and instead of doing something stupider, I know stupider is not a word, but it's fun to say,
right?
More dumb, you decided I'm going to put on my shoes, my Ultras, my Solomons, whatever it may be that you slid on that day. Maybe it's the Nike swooshes, and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take one step forward because that's all I can muster. And I know you've probably thought that a few times on that 64-mile run. I know you did. I was there in spirit with you, maybe in your back pocket. But I just want to tell you, man, you are awesome and that you are so valuable. And I don't even know you, but I just know that what you've walked through is so painful and so hard. But you're saying, you know what? I'm not going to be there. I'm going to empower this next generation. And to me, there's nothing greater in that, again, than being a father and empowering people. And I think you're doing that. So let that be of an encouragement to you. I hope it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to play this game called Senseless. Now, Chris, you've mentioned, being a corpsman. You got to know the senses, I'm thinking, right? You learned that somewhere in corpsman school, right? All right. So trick question here, but how many senses do we have? Just help me with that. Okay, all good. Right. So I was afraid you were going to say we have 17 and all that. But we play this crazy game called Senseless. I couldn't find, I heard rumors that you're a Denver Broncos fan. So I couldn't find a Broncos cup. So I found the next best thing, which in my mind is North Carolina, right?
Not even in the same time zone. Come on.
Wow.
But we'll go with North Carolina. We'll go with,
you see my shirt too. Look, I'm even rocking the shirt. It's bad around here. The walls, that's not Zoom. That's they really are light blue. Just saying. So here we go. So this is our game called Senseless. I'm gonna roll because you're in Tennessee of all places. Just get in the car. Just drive a little way so we can go to Carolina. No, all right, fine. Be that way. So here we go. I'm gonna roll on your behalf. And you got this amazing number
All right.
3. There's proof that I'm not cheating, right? You see that it's number 3?
Okay, yes, 3. Yep, got it.
Okay, just checking. People have accused me of picking my own number for the guest to suit my interests, which to me feels bad. It's my game. I could cheat if I want to. I don't, but don't accuse me of cheating, people. I'm just saying. So, Chris, I think you'll love this in the Navy, being around Marines, and even as an ultra runner. What is the greatest thing you've ever smelled?
Oh, the greatest thing I've ever smelled. Oh, man, you know, when my son was little, like the baby smell, like when fresh baby, I don't even know if that's even makes sense, but little like baby skin smell, I think that's probably that's the best thing I've ever smelled for sure.
You are, in fact, the second person, which, by the way, the first person was a woman, so we'll maybe be a little sexist there, like women maybe resonate with that smell a little more.
Yeah.
You're the first guy, though, that has said the smell of a baby.
Yeah.
We're not going to take your guide card away because I think that's awesome. I'm just saying, like, don't worry, your guide card is still intact.
I know.
You still get to be in the Navy, you know.
I should have thought about that maybe a little bit more, but yeah, that was the first one. Yeah, that was the one that just came to me. Just, I don't know, that and maybe Irish whiskey. Those two, probably. That's probably my very, very close second, Irish whiskey.
Very close second to Irish whiskey. Well, Chris, I want to thank you, and I mean this in all sincerity. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite, and thank you very much. I appreciate it, really.
Well, guys, I just want to remind you of this as we kind of wrap up today. What do you need to endure? Is there a mountain in your way? And if so, have you thought about how the heck am I going to get up over that mountain? Because my friend Chris today is here to tell you, you have to endure. Again, if it's endurable, endure it. The trick is don't complain along the way. And that's the problem, right? We all want to complain along the way about that gigantic mountain, that gigantic hill that is in our way. And I want to just share with you a little bit of a secret. So listen closely. If Chris can do it, you can too. If Chris can do it, you can too. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, he's an ultra runner, Neil. He ran 64 miles straight. Yes, he did, but he didn't get there overnight. It's not like he woke up one day and was like, you know what? I feel like going for a little bit of a run. He's not Forrest Gump. He might be close, but not quite. And I want to challenge you in that. Is there something in your life that you need to endure and push through? Let me know. opspodcast.com/connect. Let me know what that is. You can also reach us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under OPS Podcast Show. You can even leave us a voicemail straight from our website. I really want to know if you take this challenge, and let me know what you're enduring right now this week. Let me know that. And just remember this as we close out today. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.